A small Indonesian port could become India's biggest strategic weapon against China. The port we are talking about is referred as Sabang Port, located near the Strait of Malacca, which many strategic experts argue can very well become Chinese nightmare as India developed capability and capacity to monitor this particular port and the particular region of Malacca. So how it can be a checkmate played by India to China? Let us try to understand this in more detail. Now, before moving forward, let us first understand where is Sabang Port located. As you can see from this particular map, on both sides of this particular map, you have countries such as Malaysia, then further you have Singapore, and along the eastern side, you'll find, on the western side, basically, you'll find the island of Indonesia called as Sumatra. So, located between the Sumatra island and the Malay Peninsula, where Malaysia and Singapore is located, a narrow water body which you see here is what we call as a strait, is this Strait of Malacca. So you have an island called as Weh Island. Around the Weh Island is located this Sabang Port that is on the northern tip of Sumatra, near close to Andaman Nicobar Island also we can say. And how close? 100 miles just from the Andaman Nicobar Island. And on the Great Nicobar, India is also carrying out one of the biggest infrastructure development in the form of Great Nicobar project, or also called as Nicobar Transshipment Project as such. Now, let us try to understand that why is the Malacca Strait important. So, first of all, it is important and very vital for maritime trade perspective as 40% of global trade passes through this particular strait. Now, China is very independent on this particular strait itself, as majority of its oil, LNG and cargo passes through the Strait of Malacca. In other ways, Strait of Malacca connects the Indian Ocean region and the Pacific Ocean region, and it serves as a hub of a critical global supply chain. Also, it is considered as one of the world's busiest sea lane. Now, there is a term which is used in the international relations, and that is Malacca Dilemma. Malacca Dilemma is a term that is always associated with the Chinese dependency on Malacca and vulnerability if any changes, geopolitical changes take place in the region. So, 80% of China's oil import uses this particular route itself. As you can see from this bigger map, we know that majority of your oil producing countries are in the Gulf, in the West Asia, and China imports large volume of oil and gas from countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, etc. And all of the oil basically flows through this area that is shaded in red. This is the Strait of Malacca before reaching to the coastal regions of China. So a large share of trade of China passes through here. That's why it is heavily dependent, strategically dependent on this particular route. Any disruption to this particular route or any blockade of this particular route could hamper its economy to a significant extent, and that's why this particular strategic vulnerability that China has with regards to Malacca is referred as China's Malacca Dilemma. Now, how and why is it important for India? What kind of strategic role it can play for India? So first of all, we know that due to the geographical proximity India enjoys through the Andaman Nicobar Island to the Strait of Malacca, it has its permanent presence in the area. But now the particular deal where Sabang Port India can develop and India can enjoy a better relationship there. It will also provide possibility for better maritime surveillance, and also India can have a stronger role to play as far as the defense and security of the Indo-Pacific region is concerned. This also is a clear example or evidence of closer ties between India and Indonesia. Plus, overall, it would lead to the improved maritime security. Now, India enjoys twin advantages there. One, because of the recent Sabang deal, and other because of the Great Nicobar. Twin strategic location suitable for monitoring any kind of sea traffic, whether it is the commercial traffic, passenger traffic, or even defense traffic. Faster naval response can be provided by the Indian Navy in case of any exigencies or requirement, and will also support the India's maritime strategy that depends upon the Sagar, which is now called as Mahasagar. The mutual and holistic mutual and holistic agreement on security and growth for all in the region. This is the dictum on which India's naval diplomacy operates. So this will also get a boost if India enjoys a strong presence in the critical sector, that is Strait of Malacca. Plus, we know that Indian Navy is trying to develop its command on the Andaman Nicobar Island. That will also be strengthened as such. And again, if you look at the map here, how critical is this area for China? This is small strait, the narrow strait that is called as Strait of Malacca, and you can see that multiple places you have where also China is trying to develop its ports itself, which can be used for the dual purposes. Now, military significance wise, the port itself is an example of deep water port, and it can accommodate ships up to 50,000 tons. In simple way, we can say that all types of naval vessels can be docked and can be accommodated by this particular port, and that is why even it is suitable for the submarines and logistic and refueling hub. That's how its transformation can be seen. Not only that, strategic experts argue that this particular port development can be a way of handling China's string of pearls policy. China's string of pearls is a term that is used since many years to refer the Chinese approach of having control over ports all around India, forming a string, and the string will be made up of ports which will act like a pearl. So as you can see from this particular map itself, the Gwadar port in Pakistan, Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, then we have the Sitwe port in Myanmar, Chittagong port in the case of Bangladesh, and further even to the west, China is trying to have control over the ports in the African countries such as Port Sudan. So it is overall an objective with which China is trying to expand its influence in the Indian Ocean region, and that's why it is developing ports all across the region. So the one reason why China is trying to expand its presence is not only to counter India, but also to protect its maritime interest in the region because of its heavy dependency, especially in the energy sector, on the trade from this region. Now the question that comes, that why all of these ports that we have discussed, which which are the part of string of pearls, why this country have given this port to China? Now first thing we have to understand is that these countries have not given this port to China deliberately or by own willingness. China has caught them in what we call as debt trap diplomacy. So Chinese infrastructure loans are provided to this port, and the best example of this we can see in the case of Hambantota. So a lot of debt is provided to these countries. Many times they are not able to service this debt, sustain this debt level, and that's why this debt now that China has, it acts as a leverage, it uses it as a leverage, and by using this as a leverage, it try to have or exercise a long-term port control. In case of Hambantota, Sri Lanka, Chinese have taken a loan, a lease of 99 years. Up to 99 years, they would be the one who will be operating the ports, managing everything related to the port. And this kind of debt trap diplomacy, in which many countries, neighboring countries of India, has got trapped inside, it raises a strategic concern for India itself. That's how we can have to understand that the debt trap diplomacy of China works. Now, the key takeaways from this entire discussion is that first of all, this particular Sabang Port deal strengthens India-Indonesia ties. It counters Chinese expansion as well by providing them answer by having our strong control in the vital Strait of Malacca. It enhances security of Malacca region itself, and also it will be acting as a complement to the Great Nicobar project, a transshipment project where India is trying to develop airports as well as seaports on the island. Overall, this entire Sabang port, this discussion and deal between India and Indonesia is going to boost Indo-Pacific strategy in significant manner. That's all for this particular video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your aspirants as a subscribe channel for more such content. Thank you very much.